The UK government has announced that around 4,000 UK victims of the infected blood scandal are to receive interim compensation of £100,000 each. It'll be given to those whose health is failing after developing blood-borne viruses like hepatitis and HIV, as well as partners of people who have died. Now, it's the first time compensations will be paid after decades of campaigning. The BBC's Lisa Summers reports.
As a boy growing up in the 1970s, Myles Hutchinson was given blood contaminated with hepatitis C. He endured more than his fair share of abuse.
There was a stigma attached to it, and I used to get graffiti written on the walls where I lived with people saying I was horrible things.
His mental and physical health have had many ups and downs as he struggled with his illness. He was unable to keep his job.
I loved working, I really did. And when I had to stop working, it was so depressing and debilitating on top of what was already going on. It took away simple things in life, but it also took away stability.
Myles was treated for haemophilia at Edinburgh Royal Infirmary. 40 years on, and he's now one of around 4,000 people in the UK who receive compensation for what happened.
Money can't quantify the suffering. I know if I was paid in tears, I'd be a billionaire.
Families of those affected, some the parents of young boys who developed AIDS, and others who contracted long-term illnesses, gave evidence to the public inquiry into what happened. It started almost 4 years ago. Campaigners have always questioned what was known about the risks and to what extent it was covered up. Julia Gordon-Smith painted to remember her father Peter.
This was the very last touch that I had with my dad.
He died just before the public inquiry began. Her family will not yet receive compensation, as children, parents and siblings are not included in the payouts. Her sisters gave up work to care for their dad.
They won't get any help at all to help them with the time that they spent looking after him. But the carers were not just spouses, and that is a fact which has still got to be really looked at.
Julia remembers Peter as a musician, a vivacious father whose life was destroyed by his illness. She says the most important outcome is answers.
People were left in poverty and degradation because nobody would take ownership of the causes of contaminated blood. And the scandal was the fact that it was so buried and people were abandoned.
Campaigners say the announcement of compensation is a first step in accepting responsibility for the biggest treatment disaster the NHS has known.
Well, that was Lisa Summers, and Lisa is with me now. And Lisa, there is kind of qualified celebration for this money from some quarters, isn't there?
Yes, that's right. I mean, there's a number of things going on, as you heard from Julia there. There are some people that at this point will miss out on compensation. That's primarily parents who lost children, or else the children of those who were affected too, because it's about people who are on support payments at the moment, and roughly about 550 people in Scotland will receive them. However, there were recommendations that compensation should be looked at, and a wider group of people should be considered for compensation, and it's expected that Sir Brian Langstaff, who's chairing this UK-wide blood inquiry, will look at that and make some further recommendations when he concludes his investigation next year. In terms of getting the payments, the money is coming from the UK Treasury, but the Scottish Government today says it expects to have ironed out any issues and to be able to start with kind of getting the money to people, and it's hoping to be able to do that by the end of October, as is the case with England.
OK, Lisa, thank you. That's Lisa Summers.